Thousands took to the streets of Glasgow on July 16 to take part in the Pride March. Trans people were a vibrant part of the Pride March here in Glasgow. However, away from the joy and enthusiasm of Pride celebrations, trans people in the UK face prejudice in their daily lives.
We are a group of people who are likely to be spat at, shouted at, called names in the street, and ultimately even offered violence in the street. And, for some people, the very last words they hear on this planet are hate words while they're being kicked in a gutter.
Kat Burton is a retired British Airways captain, a diversity champion, and the chair of the Gender Identity Research and Education Society. She is also a trans woman. I reached out to Kat to find out about the current process of applying for a gender recognition certificate or a GRC.
What you've got to do is when you apply, you have to justify that you've been living unbroken in role for 2 years minimum. And what that involves is supplying every piece of paper with your name on it during that 2-year period. Collating every piece of paper with your name on it for the last 2 years is a really arduous task.
Yes.
It involves every pay slip, every tax return, every utility bill, every mobile phone bill, every bank statement, every credit card statement, all to justify that there's no break in that 2 years.
Trans people can apply for a GRC through the Gender Recognition Act of 2004, but not all opt for legal gender change. Dr. Jane Hamlin is a trans woman. She is currently the president of the Beaumont Society, the longest established support group in the UK for trans people and their families. I sat down with Jane to find out why fewer trans people apply for a GRC.
So there's all sorts of reasons why people don't apply, and it's mainly because it's too complicated, too tedious, too bureaucratic experience.
The Scottish Government wants to simplify the process to legally change gender. Earlier this year, Cabinet Secretary for Social Justice Shona Robison introduced the Gender Recognition Reform Scotland Bill at the Parliament in Edinburgh. The legislation removes the need for medical and psychiatric reports, reduces the waiting time from 2 years to 3 months, and allows 16 and 17-year-olds to apply for the first time. While some have welcomed the proposed reforms, not all sections are happy. The LGB Alliance, For Women Scotland, and Women's Place UK are just some of the many organizations that oppose the bill. Women's rights organizations raise concerns over how the bill might affect the rights and safety of women and children. However, trans people such as Jane do not see this as a dichotomy.
Trans rights don't clash with women's rights. I mean, there's no reason why they should. Why would women's rights be impaired by trans people being able to live and be recognised in the gender that they feel for themselves?
The reform bill is a highly divisive topic for many, but for the trans community, there is a far more significant challenge, that of social stigma.
Well, lack of acceptance by some members of our society, misunderstandings that are spread about trans people, lies and so on.
Campaigners say that trans people are often portrayed in the media in ways that are negative and harmful. I reached out to Dr. Angela Zotola, researcher and author of Transgender Identities in the Press, to find out more.
Trans individuals tend to be represented in a very negative, very discriminatory way as a way to make the news more appealing for the readers.
The choice of images and words in trans-related news has far-reaching consequences even affecting the personal safety of the trans community.
The discussion around trans people, which is not inclusive, which is discriminatory, fuels the hate against trans people, which as a consequence makes the rates of hate crimes against trans people higher.
Can the proposed reform bill play a role in combating violence against trans people? Dr. Paddy McQueen, senior lecturer at the University of Swansea, weighs in on the topic.
So I think a lot of, particularly violence against trans people, comes from transphobia, the thought that trans identities are somehow kind of unnatural or wrong in some way. And by kind of providing sufficient recognition of them, there's a kind of governmental confirmation that these are legitimate ways of being. We recognize the validity of the experiences and the feelings of trans people.
The reform bill may not be a panacea to resolve all the challenges that the trans community faces. It is still a step forward in making trans lives less difficult. Divya Venkatu, University of Glasgow.